Hello and welcome to our live stream on October 18th, 2020. And today we're going to talk about Violets on the Window, Chapter 18, Ramiro's Story. Now, quickly, let's talk about Violets on the Window. It's a story about a spirit called Patricia, who was 19 when she passed over into the spirit world. She was born and raised into a spiritist family, and therefore she was helped at her early death at 19 into one of the first levels of heaven. And this is her story about her in the colony San Sebastian, which is a wonderful story of her impressions of the colony when she first passed over. But before I begin, I should say, please hit the bell, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Please comment. It helps us with the algorithm that helps us spread Spiritism far and wide. Now, let's begin about Patricia and her impressions of heaven. This is chapter 18. It's called Ramiro's Story, and I'll start reading from her story now. I noticed that Ramiro was listening attentively, so I asked him, "And you, Ramiro, don't you want to talk a little about yourself? It's by listening to friends that you get information." Then he said, "Until recently, I was ashamed of talking about my incarnate life or my death. Later, I found out that everyone has a story and that there is no criticism at the colony, only help. You're right, Patricia. We learn important lessons when we listen to our friends' stories. My departure was quite sad. Why is the passing over so sad for most people?" So let's think about what he just said. He said, there's no criticism in the colony, only help. And this is true. Remember the law of affinity. When you pass over, you go where others are like you. And even if you're in some undesirable environment in the spirit world, and as you become better and you ascend in your spirituality and your maturity, you will go with others at the same level of maturity. And therefore, as you ascend spiritually, people do not talk behind your back. There's no gossip, malicious gossip, meanness, sarcasm about your past history. It's only help. This is why heaven is a wonderful place. So I'll carry on reading. There was silence for a few minutes. He goes, "Indeed, I thought, from almost everyone I've heard here, my passing was sad or I suffered a lot," is what Patricia was saying. It was Mauricio who answered. That's because, and Mauricio is kind of like her spiritual mentor. He's been helping Patricia in her introduction to the spirit world after she just died. Now, Patricia, remember when you died, you take a while. You don't all of a sudden remember all your past lives. You're not really ready for that yet. So now Mauricio's saying, that's because most people don't think about their own passing. They don't prepare themselves for the continuation of life, living their incarnate lives as if this was their main objective, loving matter more than spiritual truths. They don't love what is truthful, but rather the carnal illusions, and so become their prisoners. When they leave the perishable body, they get desperate, forgetting that this physical vehicle is temporary. Because they are afraid of the death of the body, they don't live according to the example set by Jesus. This always makes for a sad and painful passing. But those who were good while incarnated, the ones who served the Father and lived the teachings of Jesus, there is nothing, and their passing over is joyful. Now, in this paragraph, there's everything we need to know. First, why are we on earth? We are on earth to become better people. And why do we go through the trials and tribulations? Well, let me show you. Because, let me hide this one. Because it's all to make us more mature spiritually. And how is this done? Well, by the process of karma. Now let's think about this. Let's think about this and really kind of expand horizons. We are on Earth. Earth, why? Earth is a campus. Earth is where spirits go to become more spiritually mature. How do we become more spiritually mature? Well, that's why Jesus was on earth. We need to follow his precepts, the basic tenets. We need to love one another. We need to have charity. We need to have fraternity, be honest with each other. And so each one of us is going through this karmic process ourselves, in that our previous life is recorded, everything in minute detail. Remember, I've said this before, the Spirit Manual and other spirits have told us that everything we do is tagged with a unique identifier. We are unique, and therefore every thought, every action is tagged. Those thoughts and actions are analyzed from our previous life, and therefore our current life is the result of our previous life, and therefore that is the trials and tribulations we go through. That helps us increase our love, our fraternity, our charity. Sometimes what we can look at as pretty painful experiences, but there they are. Now, your current life you're going through, and you are building up your, all your experiences, your good and your bad karma, everything, and that's going to dictate your future life. So if you want your future life better than this life, try and study Spiritism, try and follow the precepts of Jesus. That is why we're here. So you think about this, we think about karma, you think about, okay, we're a spirit, we're put into this physical body. So how's all that done? That is where you get to the point that in what is the truth of our existence, right? And this is also what was said in the book, the truth of the existence. Now, what they say the truth of existence is that we're here to learn spiritual, right? To be better spiritually. But how? Why are we here to be better spiritually? Well, you have to look at us. Now, as I describe the spiritual world, I describe it kind of as, our physical world, up and down and wide and long and in depth and in time. But what is the real truth? The real truth is that we really are in a type of a matrix existence. We are spirits put into this physical body where we are limited as far as our senses, because our senses are so much more powerful as a spirit. But we're limited as the senses. We are put into an application, a game on your iPhone or your Android phone, whatever it is. You are now this avatar. You've been put into this avatar, and as you're being put into this avatar, you don't sense as much. You only sense about 1/8 of the world around you. We on Earth, or most of us, some people have power that I do not have. They can see spirits. We can't. We can't see the spirit world, most of us. We can't see other spirits. We see very little. And we think this physical self is the real state of us, the true state. That's not true. We are just here. This is a temporary, our physical body is a temporary state. Now, so this is what is so interesting about the world in general, is that we are here to learn, to become better, to become superior and mature spirits, ones who we're not tied to the earth, we're not tied to materialism. And believe me, we've all been there. And of course, we all, even I am still, to a certain extent. I need to make enough money to pay, the rent, to buy food, to help my family. We all have to be material to some extent. I'm not saying anybody to give off all your, your car, your house, everything, and just, beg for alms in the world. No, we have to learn how to balance our materialism and our spiritualism, and then within that balance, always maintain our good conscience. Now, why is our conscience so important? Our conscience is the law library of the universe. It is the set of divine laws that is within each of us. Every one of us knows what's right and wrong. Now, that we can look at people and go, well, that person obviously doesn't know what's right and wrong. That person's a scoundrel. And so there are different levels of maturity of humans on Earth. And as they go through these different, different trials in life after life, they will learn more and more to listen to their conscience. When they're very primitive spirit, the earth is right now a world of atonement, meaning where we pay for our past wrongs as we learn to become better. But primitive spirits, as primitive tribesmen, where they'll just kill or whatever, they don't feel too bad about it because they don't know any better, and they don't learn to listen to their conscience. And so just like children, right? Children just do whatever they want to. But then as they get older, they get more in touch with their conscience, and they get more in touch with the morality that their parents helped them. But when you're about 15 to 20, your true personality comes through. And therefore, then your conscience becomes more fully developed, and your conscience and your instincts are given to you after each life, and you're more in touch with those. So we all are in touch with that. In fact, that's what I talk about in my book, How to Live, is really how to be in touch with your conscience and have a serene conscience. Because the more you do things that you think are right, even though they may not be materially beneficial to you, the more stress-free, the more serene and calm and happy you will be, and you will have a wonderful reward in heaven. So that is kind of a very summary of the fact that we aren't real as we think we're real. We're not this carbon-based life form that will pass away and there's no soul. Yes, and as someone just says, electromagnetic moral compass, and that is a very good, a very good saying, right? Is that really what it is? Is we know that, and we just have to pay attention to it. If we can pay attention to it, that is a victory. And let me give you an example. When I was younger, and before I discovered Spiritism through drastic events in my life, those were all part of a planned event in my life. I wanted to rise in the organization of corporation, and to rise in an organization of corporation, you have to drink the Kool-Aid, right? And you have to make your employees drink the Kool-Aid too, or they got to be fired. Now, I hated that. And therefore, and this is even before I found Spiritism, I just did not like it. I just, and God bless anyone out there who's going through the same thing. And certainly don't have to follow my example. But finally what I did is I said, no, I don't want to be in charge of anyone anymore, because we were doing things like at the year-end review, you had to grade on a curve, and that means if you had 10 people in your organization, you had to make one of them that you could, give them such a terrible review that they could be fired, even though they may not be as good as the other people. This has always been my opinion. Now, some people deserve to be fired, and that actually helps them because they need to say what a terrible job they're doing. So, that does happen. But there are some people that does a job, and they may be the weakest person in that 10-person group, but what they do, no one else would want to do, and they do it well. And so there's always a use for them for certain amounts of work. But in this grading on a curve thing, that where you've got to frighten the hell out of your employees, well, that's part of drinking Kool-Aid, becoming, as one of my boss says, is part of becoming a middle manager suck up, which I certainly try my best, and I've done things that I certainly regret. But finally, I came to the point where it was just too much stress, and I felt, okay, I'm not going to make a big amount of money. I will not be I'll be considered a failure, but I'll be a happy failure. I'll just be an individual contributor. That's why I just became, instead of a manager, I became more of like a project manager, where I had informal power, where I help project plans and things like that. And I was a lot happier and less stressed. I tell you, it made a big difference in my life. So let's get back to the book. So Mauricio, silence. We all looked at Ramiro. Ramiro's talking about his life, inviting him to continue to tell his story. So then he said, I passed away young. I was on drugs, though I wasn't an addict yet, or so I thought. We fool ourselves when we use drugs, thinking we can stop anytime we want. Still, it's when we try to free ourselves that we realize how much we are dependent on them. I started with marijuana and progressed to cocaine. My family didn't know about it and never found out, since I didn't have any reason to justify my involvement with drugs. Today, I know there is no rational justification to this madness. My drug involvement started when I was dating a beautiful girl, coveted by every boy in school. She and her gang smoked marijuana and induced me to join them. I started smoking because of this idiotic fear of being labeled square and immature. So this is, again, this is typical adolescence peer pressure. Where, as I did, the stupid things you do is just too numerous to mention. I'll carry on. I broke up with her, but remained in the gang. During a race, playing chicken with a borrowed motorcycle, I had an accident. I fell off the motorcycle, hitting my head on a rock, which caused instant death to my body. Obviously, I got extremely distraught by the occurrence. I hung around my family and my friends from the gang. These were so scared of my death that they even stopped taking drugs. A few days after passing over, I began feeling withdrawal pains with cocaine. My entire spirit craved for the drug. It was horrible. Now let's talk about that for a second. Well, how could he crave for the drug when he stopped having a physical body? Well, this is a very important point to understand. It's all about mental issues. It's all about what you feel mentally. And if you are an addict of alcohol, cocaine, whatever it is, and your perispirit is used to feeling that addiction. So we're all composed of three parts, right? Our spirit, which is a logical representation of our personality and our character. In fact, you see that a lot in spiritist literature. They talk about, oh, this person's personality. It's like labeling a set of routines, a artificial intelligence as a certain personality. Don't associate with a body. Don't associate with anything right now. Just think of yourself as this logical routine that can go anywhere in the universe, the spirit universe, right? Anywhere you wish, that's your character, your personality. And of course, that is why God is so just amazingly superior to us, because that is how they make us intelligent and they make us superior. And yet when they make us superior in intelligence through all these trials and tribulations, we're all unique, but we're all equally good in the majority of ways, right? When we ascend spiritually, but we're all unique personalities. It's when you really think of this whole process of making us go through trials and tribulations and what we think are physical lives, because in our physical body, we are much more open to different stimuli to cause us to really analyze our character and our personality and to change it for the good. So let's say you're hooked on something. Well, your body feels that chemical dependence. Now, your perispirit is what connects into every cell in your body. Therefore, as that is happening, now when Ramiro, when he hit his head from the motorcycle accident, his body perished. But guess what? His perispirit had recorded everything that happened. And of course, as someone just commented, it's really a sensational attachment, which is a very good, kind of shorthand for what that is, because that perispirit connects to every cell. And so therefore, if you think you've been dependent on alcohol or cocaine, when you die, your perispirit still feels that. And that's why they have, and I'm sure Ramiro will talk about this later, they have help for you in the spirit world. When you come up in the spirit world, then they'll give magnetic passes. They'll tell you, no, this is a physical thing, that you're no longer associated with this sensational attachment, and therefore you don't need it. Only in your mind, which is your spirit, do you think you need it, and therefore you really feel it. But it's not true. It's like people who've had a leg or an arm cut off, yet they still feel they have that leg or arm. Same thing. That's why people who are addicted to smoking, they want to smoke, they want to drink, and that's why you see stories in the Umbral about spirits who will kind of, hang around people who drink or whatever they do, have, material pleasures, even eating, and they'll kind of like encase themselves in that physical body. So they'll feel the alcohol, they'll feel whatever that other person is doing. It's very important to them. They haven't had, those people who are still trapped into the lower zone haven't had the education yet in the levels of heaven. So that is why. So that paraspirit is when you pass over, when Ramiro thought, a lot of people pass over, and he's talking about he went to his friends, he went to his house. To himself, he goes, well, I'm not dead because I look like me. I'm still me. I still feel me. But that's your paraspirit. That is your view of yourself. Now, as you are in the spirit world and you learn about the paraspirit, then you can make yourself look younger. You can make yourself look older. I can give, if I want, when I'm in the spirit world, I'm going to have a full head of hair, right? I want, all these things. I'll look younger, and because you are, you become what you think you should become, and that is really. And this is the most fantastic thing you learn about Spiritism is thought is action. And when you think of that, thought is action, and how this is like the most fantastic, fantasy or science fiction, movie or book you've ever heard or read of. It's so your life, the fact that you're on Earth in this Matrix-like game to teach you how to become a better person. And then when you get rid of your physical body, you're back into the real world, the spirit world, where thought is action. And the higher you go, the higher you ascend in the spirit world, the more power your thoughts have, because you're more spiritually pure. And they don't let us immature spirits have, we can't destroy all certain things because we need to be peaceful and calm and loving in all types of situations. So let me continue on with what Ramiro said. So he goes, it was horrible, right? Since he still craved for the drug, because he thought he still craved for the drug. At home, it was sheer agony to watch my mother crying. I felt guilty, and actually I was. I passed away because I had been imprudent, playing with a motorcycle, such a dangerous vehicle, and because I was high while doing it. I knew I'd passed away before my time. My family's suffering made me feel guilty and remorseful. This situation at home was tormenting me too much, so I left and wandered about. I was aware that I had passed over, although I didn't know exactly what was happening to me. My body had perished, and I was still alive. I didn't know what to do, and the craving to shoot cocaine was getting worse. I never thought I would be suffering so much. Cocaine was my most critical need. I wasn't interested in food. It wasn't hot or cold, although I was thirsty at times. So I decided to look for the drug. So here he is. Was probably on the surface of the earth, right? He's been walking around his family. Of course, he comes up to them and say, Mom, Dad. They don't even know he's there, right? So, then he goes, oh, okay, I must be dead. There's something weird going on here. So when I found them, I couldn't even come close to them because by their side, there were these horrible monsters. Later, I found out these monsters were only discarnate junkies. Suffering brothers and sisters, prisoners of the drugs who were acting like vampires, are incarnate addicts. So when they talk about vampires, they're talking about someone who lives off, not like a real blood-sucking vampire. He's talking about someone who is living off the experiences of another. And those people, and that's why once you become addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever you're addicted to, it becomes so hard to stop it because you have all these other you have all these spirits who are also addicted to whatever that is, egging you on and saying, more and more, have that drink, right? Do this, do that. And when you're trying to stop, it takes just an immense amount of willpower to stop, because you have all these thoughts coming at you. Because remember, thoughts, your thoughts go throughout the universe. Your thoughts, every thought is recorded, and your thought goes to other people. Now, us being in this physical state, we don't really think we hook these up. But if you've noticed, mob reactions and stuff like that, these thoughts really do affect us a small amount, but it's quite a lot when there's other spirits around us really trying to put thoughts into our head. And that's why we're on earth, not to let them do that. We're on earth to use our conscience to filter out a lot of these stupid ideas. It's like when you were in middle school or junior high and all your friends would always give you really great advice. Not right. It was like the dumbest thing that, let's do something stupid today. Well, that's a great idea, because I've done that myself. This is what it's like here being on earth, even as an adult, when you're doing something that is wrong, and yet all your so-called friends around you are telling you, yes, do it. So anyway, I'll carry on with what he said. He goes, I was truly desperate. Just around that time, I sensed that my grandmother was praying for me. She was a spiritist. The reason our family used to tease her, especially her grandchildren. I thought to myself, she could be right. I died and I'm here wandering as a spirit. I remember the terminology she used. I knew where was the spiritist center she frequented, so I walked over there. The place was open and I entered a bit ashamed. When a gentleman, a discarded rescuer, asked me what I wanted, I said, begging, help me for God's sake. Don't they help wandering spirits in here? I died and I don't know what to do. I'm desperate for a fix of cocaine or I'll die. I can't die again, right? If I can't die again, I don't know what will happen if I don't have some cocaine. My grandmother frequents this place. Help me, please. So that's why spiritist centers are so wonderful. And it's wonderful when I'm in Brazil, because there's all of them around here. And when I go to some mediums meetings, I'm not a medium, but they help spirits like Ramiro, and they talk to them, and they because they have this association with physical humans, and they kind of listen to them. It's like a child listening to another child more than to listen to an adult. So he said, the rescuer was looking at me with kindness. I fainted and fell on his arms. I'll be forever grateful to those spiritists, the generous people who gave me refuge. I was taken to a hospital, to a wing for treatment of drug addicts. My struggle against drug addiction wasn't easy. When I would become desperate, I was kindly helped by the brothers and sisters who worked there. The treatment lasted many months. I had magnetic passes therapy. I learned how to pray, and when I wasn't in crisis, I would read spiritist books and the gospel. I had my meals, drank water, and used to take a bath, but only when feeling better. So there are spiritual hospitals. They don't give us, other types of drugs. They don't do surgery, physical surgery, but they do mental surgery. They will help. Sometimes they'll help even erase memories, bad memories that are counterproductive. Magnetic passes is when they will put their arms, they'll kind of wave their hands. They give passes even in spiritist centers for incarnates. I've had those, and you can feel the energy. In fact, I've given passes, and I can feel the energy just coming through my arms. Because what happens during passes is someone will sit down, like I'm sitting down there, and then someone will wave their arms, right? Kind of like this, and maybe go around their head a certain way. And that person who is waving their arms to a person sitting down, they are being given magnetic influence, which is the universal fluid that is sourced just for that body. And the spirit standing behind, let's say if I'm given a pass, standing behind me, would use my body to transform the universal fluid to become customized for that person's body. They use that to be kind of a filter to customize that, and therefore to rebalance their chakras or their energy centers or force centers, as they call them in Spiritism. And you always kind of feel better, and you feel balanced, and it really is a wonderful thing. That's why if there's a Spiritism center in your area and they give passes, usually if you go to a Spiritism center, they'll give a talk for a half hour, an hour, and then they'll let you have passes, and at the end they'll drink a little bit of water that's been magnetized. Of course, you can do that at home too. You can what we do is we call it God at Home. Spiritism calls it God at Home. And you sit there, like in our family, we'll read something from the Spirit's book or the Gospel according to Spiritism, or some other literature. We will pray, and then we will have like our vase of water. And at the end, then we'll drink that magnetic water. It makes, it does help you. So let me carry on with Ramiro. Because when my condition improved, I went to visit other imprudent brothers and sisters like me. So in this hospital, so they're helped. And there's also the books about other types of hospitals. There's types of hospitals that help with different sexual problems. There's hospitals that help with suicides. And they tell you why. This is why you committed suicide. This is why you shouldn't have. This is they'll go through their past life and say, this is why you had the trials and tribulations you signed up for. And they'll also say, and by the way, the spirit world never makes a trial tribulation that doesn't have some sort of end. Now, it may be an end of death, but still it would have an end. He said all you had to do is wait a week, a month, a year, and things would have been resolved. So, and then, like a lot of people, they went and they visited others, because I'll never forget what I saw. Suffering as I never thought possible. I saw many deformed youngsters, like those I thought were monsters, who were recuperating but still debilitated. Now, when he says he thought they were monsters, they looked like monsters, because you look like how you feel. And if you feel that you're just this sucking up, wanting to have some sort of drug or alcohol, and you think that you're just this horrible human being, well, guess what? Your paraspirit reacts to your mind, and therefore you look like that. That's the sad part. I think that's a lot of why you have these myths of werewolves and vampires and other monsters, right? Because when people who were mediums and they saw these visions and they saw spirits as the spirits saw themselves, they saw these types of strange beings. In fact, the spirits say, let's say if you go to one of these haunted mansions, one of these walk through where people are all made up like zombies or whatever, spirits say, look, whatever you think you're scared of in Halloween, it's worse when you're actually there, because there's so many really desperate people. It's very sad. So I'll carry on with what Ramiro said. I realized that as soon as they were rescued, they would be in the right path toward freedom from suffering. Worse off for those who weren't rescued at all, and those who didn't want to be free. I realized I hadn't really suffered a whole lot, because I'd been led by my grandmother's sincere prayers, and because while incarnated, I had not committed other wrongful acts like the crimes that are common among addicts. Also, I looked for help right away. Otherwise, I was destined to wander around in misery as so many others. After I was detoxified, I came to this learning center where I now study and prepare myself for yet more improvement. In the future, I want to be a rescuer of souls who are slaves to addiction. So the only need I had as a discarnate for my own suffering and agony was cocaine. I hungered desperately for it. So then Patricia writes, well, Ramiro became quiet and Mauricio hugged him. Mauricio said, we're prisoners of whatever we attach ourselves to while incarnated. I'm sure that you, my young man, will be an excellent rescuer. And that is so true. We are prisoners of whatever we attach ourselves to. And those are the people. There are so many people on the lower zone who don't make it into heaven because they're attached to something materialistic. That could be their house, their houses, their cars, some material. They're attached to some object. In fact, there's been talks in the spiritualist literature about some painting and their spirits that will follow this painting even in museums because that was their painting or their statue or whatever that they just loved, and they didn't, they're attached to it. And we're told over and over again in spiritualist literature is that the more we kind of we prune, the more we we say, look, I don't need that, right? We don't attach ourselves to materiality. We free ourselves of what we don't need. We prune our needs. We become freer and freer, because what do you take with you when you die? You take your mind, right? Your personality and your character. And that's the only thing you're supposed to take with you. You take your learning experiences. And are you a better person or you're not a better person? Because you certainly whatever you had on earth is going to rust and rot away. Eventually the whole earth will decay. The sun will blow up and destroy the earth. You'll be in some other universe or some other planet, whatever. It's all gonna, you're an immortal spirit. You are this logical being who will never grow old. You'll never get sick unless you think you are. This is the fantastic truth that Spiritism brings us. And it brings us this truth that we are a group of spirits under the leadership of Jesus Christ. He's given us our curriculum, our study guide that we should use. It's called the gospel. Of course, now people say, well, a lot of things are not very nice in the Old and New Testament. And, again, of course, other religious things like, Buddha and Lao Tzu. But remember that the spirits tell us is that as these wonderful messengers of Jesus, like Buddha and Socrates were both ministers of Jesus, came and told us these things, they were telling us what they knew that we could understand at the time. So there's some things in there that were more directive. Let's say it's the Old Testament, where they told people, okay, go to this land and go to that city and kill everybody. Well, that's a terrible thing to do. But that was kind of treating that tribe as they had to be treated, so they would listen to other things at the time of their maturity, or their immaturity, one should say. So as our culture and our technology becomes more advanced, they talk to us in ways that we can understand. That is why the Old Testament, the way it was, the New Testament was more about love and forgiveness. And then in 1850s, Spiritism, with the codifier of Spiritism, Allan Kardec, is telling us much more. And that's why even more and more people today are becoming mediums, or they have visions, or they have thinking. The truth is going to be shown to more and more people. The spirit world isn't going to only use organized religion to give us these messages, because organized religion has kept them for themselves and used these messages as a way in order to make money, which is not what was the spirit world wanted. So Ramiro, still eager to learn, took advantage of Mauricio's presence to ask. So this is Ramiro asking Mauricio, who's kind of a spirit that's come in helping people in that colony. He says, Mauricio, what happens to people suffering from diseases like cancer? People who take strong medicines that control pain, medicines that often shorten their lives. Do they also crave these drugs after they pass over? Is it wrong to take them, knowing that they abbreviate our corporeal existence? And Mauricio answered, to care for the physical body is an obligation of all of us, since we need it for a period of time in order to live our incarnated lives. We have to utilize whatever the earthly medicine can offer to cure diseases. So again, they're saying, don't be like, some of these people are Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever, like, oh, if God meant me to have this, I'm ready. No. The spirit world puts us here on this earth. They know full well what the level of technology is, and you're expected to keep yourself healthy to use that level of technology to what you can. He goes, if what we take to alleviate pain also shorten existence, that is not the patient's fault, nor the doctor's. I believe that soon science will find new ways to alleviate pain and cure people. Still, my young Ramiro, when we take a drug as an indispensable medicine, it won't be missed when we pass over. Nevertheless, I've been a rescue physician for many years, and I've seen many react in different ways to pain. Those who endure excruciating physical pain with resignation are helped and soon feel well. Those who revolt while facing the same pain can always be rescued. So they continue to feel the reflexes of the disease and the pain. Sometimes they want the same medicines they used to have to be healed, to ease the pain. They're not addicts and don't crave for drugs since they took them as medicine. I've seen people who became dependent on sleeping pills. When rescued, they had to relearn how to sleep without them, having to rid themselves of that dependency. Medicines must be taken when they're necessary. In the case of cancer, an illness that causes horrible pains, it's right to take them even if they abbreviate a life. It is what the medical science has to presently offer as a treatment. So its use is allowed, yet its abuse is condemned. So, Mauricio, this is what's so great about this book, Violets on the Window. He's giving you, yes, right? Use what is present at the level of technology that we have today. And it may shorten your life, but that was all you had there, and therefore that's fine. So let me keep reading. We were silent for a few moments. Mauricio, thinking he could teach us some more, went on kindly. We could say that there are two kinds of inhabitants on earth, among the incarnate and the discarnate. There are those who, by their own efforts, become self-sufficient, are useful servants, and then there are the needy, although between them we could place the aspiring ones, those who want to learn to be useful. Unfortunately, the first group is small. It's enough to observe people in Spiritist centers to verify this. The ones who go to help are few. Most are needy because they want to be. They don't want to take advantage of the opportunities to change from needy to self-sufficient. These needs bring on suffering, as in the case of Oscar and Ramiro, as with so many others. To be or not to be, while incarnated, they can still fool themselves and hold on to illusions. Once discarnate, there's no way out. That's because the energies, the vibrations of good spirits, are pleasant, while the energies, the vibrations of ignorant spirits, are unpleasant. And of course, now this is a truism. If we waste our time and we waste all of our effort trying to get what we crave, right, our physical desires, and believe me, spirits, and I've read, and I talk about this in my book, Spirits and the Spirit Universe, is they say it's like, well, this is really, when you're a human being, there's a lot out there that make you forget anything about spirituality. Why did the spirit world make so many things that aren't good for you? The desire, the pleasure of too much sex, right? Too much drinking, the pleasure of making money because then everybody wants to do whatever you want them to do. All these are like much more immediate pleasure, pleasureful, having that big yacht with everyone will do anything they can to be, a passenger on that yacht, than becoming spiritually mature and knowing how to deny yourself that which you don't need, living frugally, trying to be nice to others, trying not to have people kiss up to you, right? Treating them honorably. Now, those are wonderful things, and helping other people make you feel good. But honestly, do they make you feel as good at that particular moment as, being rich and powerful? That's a tough one. And that just shows you, it really shows you how much we really have to modify our character in order to be successful in the spirit world. It illustrates completely the power you have. Now, why do I say that? Because the higher spirits have this immense power to create in their mind. Jesus Christ was a member of the Council of High Spirits. He and other spirits at the same level or higher than Jesus actually created the solar system. He led the creation of Earth and the Moon for us to become a planet that started out as a primitive planet. Now it's a planet of atonement, and we are now become a planet of regeneration where people won't have all that hate and anger and jealousy. But it just shows you the pleasures are immense on earth to not do right? And it happens that a lot of people who like to become spiritual, they become weak and they lose that. God bless them all, right? That's just part of the learning curve. We've all been there. So, this obstacle course is really difficult. It is immensely difficult to kind of measure yourself, right? When I was trying to climb up that corporate ladder, believe me, the rewards for climbing the corporate ladder are good. Stock options, right? You can make millions. And you have to make millions by conforming to what your superiors want you to, even though they're dumb as rocks and they're not nice people and they want to take advantage of other people, but you still have to conform to that. And you got to treat people below you certain ways, right? Yeah, I always try to be nice, but sometimes when you have to lower the boom because you were told to, that's what you have to do. But that's why you've got to kind of control those circumstances. And that's why I talk about that in my book, Spirits in the Spirit Universe, what the spirits are, what really are you made of? And then the other thing I talk about in the third book of the series, or the first book actually, is Heaven and Below, which, talks about heaven and below. And so this is, what's the heavens like? What is the lower zone? What's the dark abyss like? But then my third book is How We Are Guided by Spirits. And I did the wrong one. Sorry about that. This is How We Are Guided by Spirits. And that is showing you that you go through a lot of this. That what you have, is you're led through these experiences. And as of course someone's saying right now, this is kind of what I'm going through this now, right? And that's not easy. It's you go through all these strange things, and then you become enamored of these physical desires, and yet that's why you have to read and study and think about Spiritism, think about the truth, because I was given by medium kind of like this prayer to say every night, and one is learn the true reality, and the true reality is that what we think is real isn't. We are in this constructed universe, constructed to keep blinders on us. So we are in this emotionally fragile state on purpose, right? People feel lonely, they feel sad, they don't feel connected. Well, in the spirit world, when you are in heaven, you feel connected, you feel empowered, you feel protected, because you're connected. You're in that whole thoughts coming all around you, and you're in that atmosphere of love. And I'm sure people, have heard about NDEs, and they say, I felt so much love, I didn't want to come back. And of course, you read this over and over again in where the angel or whoever they thought they talked to said, no, sorry, you got to go back. You have to go back. And because they don't really want to, because they just feel so connected and loved in that spirit world, in the higher sections. But why are we here? But not feeling connected, not feeling love, right? Because even if you're feeling love, you're still kind of an isolated, encapsulated person on this physical life, because we're more vulnerable. And we're more vulnerable because that's where they want us to learn these important lessons, to really analyze our personality and to modify our character, our personality for the better. So when you go through really hard times, you really just think, oh, what? Why did that happen? Why did that person do that to me? Right? Why was I treated so terrible? And then you have to think for yourself is, okay, I must have done something like that to someone or some people in a previous life, and now they're doing that to me so I can learn. And I talk about that in my book, The Problem is the Solution. And these are trials and tribulations and complications sent to you so you can see the other side, right? Because every action, we were told by this over and over again by Spirit World, every action has a reaction. Now, I don't want you to think I'm harping like everything bad you do, like I took an illegal left turn, it's going to come back and haunt me. No, those are small little things. But remember, the bad things you've done, which like you maybe you've taken advantage of them, you stole from somebody, right? You treat someone badly, that will come back to you in some way, right? So these people have had like these terrible divorces and these horrible spouses. You usually think, well, you know, I've done that to someone in a previous life, and now that's being done to me. And so what you should learn from this is I'll never do that to anybody else, right? You should not think, oh, I want to get revenge on the next person. That person did me wrong. I want to do the next person wrong, right? That's not the lesson you want to learn from that. You want to learn to improve yourself. That's so important. So, is there any other questions? I think I've talked enough about this book today. I'll carry on more on next Sunday. Are there any other questions for anybody about any aspect of Spiritism? And plus, I want to tell you on my blog, nwspiritism.com, I have the book Spiritism 101, the Third Revelation. You can get that free on PDF. So that you can also get it, of course, on Kindle, paperback, or on Kindle format. And it's also, I even have that on Audible. I've got a lot of books on my books, actually even The Problem is Solution on Audible. But you can get the Spiritism 101 PDF for free on my site. You can also, I have also done Audible versions of the entire The Spirits book. I have that on the format, on Audible type format, that is you can download for free. I also have an MP3. I also have for each chapter in the book, I have that on my YouTube channel that you can download. It's just, I have a picture of the book and then me narrating the book. So if you want to hear it that way, or also on Spotify, you can look me up there, Spiritism. So I have a lot of things for people to use. And of course, Allan Kardec's books, really those are kind of your, if you're really interested in that, always look at Allan Kardec's books, because those are he codified the spirits book by talking to many spirits and not taking the answers unless multiple mediums wrote down the same message from the spirits as other mediums did without knowing about each other. And that's why the spirits book is wonderful. You can get that, because I said I had that in Audible and so forth. You can also find that on PDF. Of course, you can buy it through your bookstore or Amazon.com. But, start with that. Of course, I've written my books because I have a little bit, everyone learns differently, and I'm trying to tell people aspects, and I'm trying to gather what I've read from multiple, spirits and communications since then, because the spirits book was codified in the 1850s, and we've heard a lot and learned a lot of information since then. Okay, so well, thank you for people's comments on here, and I want to tell everyone that I want to say God bless everybody, and I will be on, now it wasn't the last weekend, I was on vacation, but usually on Sundays and Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, I'll be on, and please feel free to put your comments here, because I'll answer your comments. Go to my YouTube channel. Oh, here's the question. Hi, is there a way to find out about our past karma? And yes, and that is by analyzing what you're going through now. Anyone, people say, I want to have this past life regression. So I want to know what I was in my past life. The spirit world, for a reason, doesn't let you remember your past life, because some things could be too painful, right? And of course, why would you want to relearn algebra 5 times? No one wants that. And why would you want to know that you did something really bad to your parents that would make you feel terrible, right? So given that you can't, it's not that important to have past life memories. Really, is the way to find out about your past karma is to see what's going through now. If you had someone steal money from you, if you had a bad marriage, if you're in a job that you absolutely hate and you never seem to, even though you're trying really hard, like I've gone through, let me give you an example. I'll use me as an example. I've had situations in jobs when I was pretty high in the organizations, and those companies were sold to other companies, and I got a big payoff. Both times I had pretty big payoffs. You know, to other people it may not be much, but it was, you know, more than a couple $100,000. Both times, and believe me, I didn't drink these or use drugs. I thought I made very prudent stock investments, right? But I lost everything. And finally, I figured out, and then I had, this is then, you know, years later, I was in a mediums meeting when I was told that I had taken advantage of people in the past, and I had used money. Instead of helping people, I took their money. And therefore, by knowing that, is by, like, when I had money, but I could never keep it for long, that, okay, that was my past karma, is that I took money from other people, and I'm not allowed to make a lot of money in this life. And so I accept it, right? Okay, you know what? I don't need it, right? It's not that important to me. I've learned to say, okay, that is, you know, as long as I have my needs, my shelter, you know, my internet connection. I do pay for a good internet connection, of course. You know, those things I have, but I'm not going to have the newest car. I always buy used cars, right? In fact, this computer I'm doing, I bought a refurbed laptop because it's cheaper. So those are things I've learned. I've been on the top of the totem pole, and I didn't do very good. So I hope that helps you. So if you really look at your relationships and what you've gone through, that will tell you. Now, another clue. Some things happen to you because the spirit world doesn't want you to go down certain paths. When I was in high school, my goal was to go into the Air Force. I really wanted to do that. But then in my senior year, my eyes, my 20/20 vision, gone. And of course, back then, there was no, you know, eye surgery, none of that. And then I found out that, you know, they didn't want me in the military because I'd been in the military before. And so that, you know, it wasn't because my eyesight went bad because of something bad karma. It was because that was a path I was not allowed to take. So I hope that, okay, yep, thanks. Yeah, I hope that helps anyone out there. Just analyze what you're going through, and also do yourself a favor. When people do bad things to you, you know, it's okay to distance you. You don't have to love them, right? But you just have to see, you have to look at them as actors in a play, that they're there in a scene to give you some sort of stimuli, and they're just being used as a vehicle to make you question yourself. Don't hate them. Just say, oh, okay, they did that to me. Now, why was that done? Why did the spirit world set this person up to do that to me? Don't hate the person. Just analyze it, and don't feel bad about it. Don't punish yourself over things you've done stupidly, because I could punish myself all day. And as the spirit Joanna D'Angelo says, this, okay, analyze what you did, like an arrow in your quiver, shoot that arrow in the forest, don't look back, move forward and say, okay, I'm not going to do that again. So anyway, that's how we should look. We should analyze yourself every day and see what we can do better. Yeah. Anyway, I want to say God bless everyone, and hopefully I'll see you Sundays and Tuesdays.